Getting started. Welcome to this module on monitoring. Monitoring is an important part of the implementation of our programs. Through monitoring activities, we assess our progress towards the planned results through data collection, assessments, and reflection. Program monitoring allows us to determine three things: whether we are implementing the program as planned, whether we are achieving the planned results, and whether adjustments need to be made to the program. On completion of this module, you will be able to answer the following 6 questions. What is the role of monitoring and why is it so important? What are the types and levels of monitoring? What is the difference between results monitoring and implementation monitoring? What are the key elements of building an effective monitoring system? How do you select the appropriate methods for data collection and analysis? Who uses the information generated through monitoring, and what is it used for? Lesson 1. Types and levels of monitoring. How do we know in any program whether we are achieving planned results? We do this through program monitoring, which is what this module covers. Let's first explore the different levels of monitoring. Inputs, activities, and results are monitored as programs are implemented. Let's review what needs to be monitored at each level. Based on what you have learned in previous modules, can you associate each input and result to its definition? Match each element to its definition. Monitoring occurs across 2 major levels: results and implementation processes. Results monitoring focuses on outputs, outcomes, and impact. Implementation monitoring focuses on inputs, activities, strategies, and outputs. Please also note the existence of situation monitoring, which looks at the wider context and the situation of children, which forms the basis of our programming efforts. Situation monitoring should be a continuous effort. Different types of monitoring allow us to respond to important management questions. Results monitoring. This is a term coined to bring emphasis to monitoring higher up in the results chain, focusing on outputs and outcomes. Key management questions can be responded to by focusing on different types of monitoring. Click the buttons on the right to explore these types of monitoring. How is the situation of children or the wider context changing? How does this impact our planned results and our implementation process? Has there been an evolution in the number and location of children affected by HIV/AIDS? Has the political stability of the country evolved? Are there new opportunities for partnership? Are we achieving the results as planned? For example, are we increasing the number of pregnant women who are testing for HIV and start antiretroviral therapy if they are positive? What corrective action is needed? Are there any adjustments we need to make to implementation or to overall design of the intervention? For example, should we consider the use of other communication methods if we observe that we are not reaching out to certain groups of women? Are we implementing the intervention as planned? For example, are we counselling pregnant mothers for prevention of mother-to-child transmission of HIV/AIDS as per guidelines? Let's recap. Click on each button to see how implementation monitoring and results monitoring are distinguished. Implementation monitoring. Continuous or periodic oversights of the implementation of an activity to establish the extent to which inputs, work schedules, other required actions and targeted processes are proceeding according to plan. Key questions. Are we implementing as planned? If not, what should we change? Do we need to adjust inputs and/or activities? Results monitoring. Periodic data gathering and analysis to measure and report on results. Data from results monitoring is used for program management, including program adjustments and other decision-making. Key questions. Are we achieving expected results? If not, what should we change? Are we reducing barriers and bottlenecks, achieving outputs, and making progress towards outcomes?
Whilst I am interested in knowing how the implementation of our activities is coming along, I'm also paying close attention to the monitoring and assessing achievement of outputs and progress towards outcomes. It's no longer just about what we are doing, but also how we bring about change in the skills and capacities of key stakeholders and support changes in individual and institutional behaviors.
What results are we monitoring? We are monitoring outputs and outcomes as defined in work plans, program strategy notes, country program documents, country program action plans, humanitarian response plans, and other documents. Here are some examples of results monitoring that may occur for the Pasmania education program, focusing on outputs and outcomes. Click on Outputs and Outcomes to see examples of what we might monitor within the Pasmania case study.
The following handout can help you get an overview of the different monitoring tools and techniques used at each level. Click on the document to open it.
Lesson 2. Creating effective monitoring systems. Monitoring requires the establishment of a system or series of processes. Let's look at how effective monitoring. What do you think? How do we actually build a monitoring system? Any idea? Take a moment to think about this. Done? Let's proceed. A monitoring system consists of several components which are derived from the strategic plan, CPD, and program plan or plans. A monitoring system is comprised of a number of elements. The building blocks of a monitoring system typically include these 5 elements: personnel to manage the monitoring function, planning for monitoring, data collection tools, data collection, analysis, databases, dissemination of monitoring products. Click on the plus sign button to learn about building a monitoring system. Building a monitoring system. Monitoring occurs through the establishment of a system or series of processes that identifies what data or information is needed and how this will be used to track progress on results and indicators, identifies how data will be collected and analysed, identifies users and decision-making processes that will need monitoring information, determines how information will be maintained and managed to be used for various purposes, reviewing progress on plans, identifying corrective action, reporting, evaluations, etc., and allocates resources for monitoring. The theory of change and the logical framework should be the foundation of the monitoring system. Automated or paper-based systems need to be set up to ensure monitoring is done effectively and efficiently. A performance monitoring plan identifies specific monitoring actions, how these will be done, and who will do them. It is useful where monitoring activities are not fully reflected in a work plan. Click on the document to show an example. A performance monitoring plan helps us to focus on results of interest, in this case, outputs. The plan outlines methods of data collection, areas or geographical locations where data will be collected, responsible parties, period when data collection will be conducted, and how monitoring data and information will be used. When designing and building your monitoring system, there are 5 fundamental questions that you should ask, which you can see here. Click on each element to learn more. What information and data do managers need to have, and how will they be used? Decide what data and information will be needed to measure progress in relation to the outputs and outcomes. When do users need monitoring information and data? Identifying what users or decision-making processes or events would the information feed into and when. How will the information be collected? Outline how data and information will be collected, using what method, with whom, and with what frequency. How to analyze monitoring data. Decide how data will be analyzed. This may be through simple descriptive statistics, using software such as SPSS to run regression models, or reading through text to discern emerging themes. How should data be disseminated? deciding how the information will be disseminated, for example through reports sent by post, email or dissemination in person, online, series of dissemination workshops, one-to-one discussions with major users, etc. Lesson 3. Collecting and analysing data. It is important to select the appropriate methods for data collection and analysis to generate valid information. There are several ways that you can collect your monitoring data. Click on each element to learn more. These approaches are particularly well suited for higher frequency data collection on changes in vulnerabilities and access to services at community level. Participatory methods are used to strengthen accountability through community participation. Administrative data or routine data systems are part of information management systems and subsystems that continuously collect information at different time periods, daily, weekly, monthly, and across different levels: individual, student-patient, administrative units, school, health centre, and administrative levels, district, municipality. Non-participant observation. Observing participant or participants without actively participating. Participant observation. Identifying the knowledge, skills, behaviours, attitudes and practices of a community by living in the community, or of service providers by providing services along with them. Surveys are usually used to ascertain access to and the quality of services. Surveys typically use a questionnaire, administered by trained enumerators, to collect data on variables of interest. Sentinel surveillance involves data collection from a sample of service delivery units or communities in selected areas or groups of people. Some examples include antenatal clinics as sentinel sites for HIV surveillance. Sentinel surveillance is also used to collect information on nutritional status and on food security. Monitoring data from Sentinel sites offers an indication of what is happening more broadly. Sentinel surveillance may be useful when indicators of interest cannot be integrated into routine systems. Citizen-based monitoring collects information on service delivery or community-based interventions and issues. This often supplements other data-gathering efforts and helps trigger alerts to inform future action. New methods for data collection and analysis supported by information communication technology, ICT, are fueling innovation in the production, delivery, and presentation of information for and by communities. Stakeholders, including government officials, service personnel, communities, UNICEF staff, development partners and donors, visit program sites to observe activities taking place or the state of facilities. How do we collect data for results monitoring? Click on each of the 4 boxes to find out more. Routine data systems most commonly operate in education and health settings, such as Education Management Information Systems, EMIS, and Health Management Information Systems, HMIS, but they are increasingly being utilized in other areas, such as water supply and child protection. Through innovative use of technologies, we can collect data more effectively and efficiently. For example, using SMS-based technology has allowed UNICEF to capture information in real time across large regions. Participatory methodologies comprise of a range of mixed methods and tools that best allows community members to participate in data collection. Typically uses key informant interviews, focus group discussions, community meetings or dialogue processes, as well as observation. Field monitoring visits provide information on use of inputs, relevance and adequacy of activities, community participation, and progress towards results. Lesson 4. Leveraging technology for monitoring.
As you're involved in the Passmania Education Program project, it might be of interest for you to learn more about how technology is strengthening the practice of monitoring. I just sent you an email. Open your inbox to learn more.
Clicking on each item gives you an explanation of why new technology or ICT applications can help foster real-time monitoring. Increased unpredictability, rapidly changing circumstances, and a dynamic environment for public action requires more flexible, dynamic, and nimble approaches for monitoring that capture and adapt to rapidly and continuously changing circumstances. Traditional approaches of diligently checking if a public policy, program, or service is on track in achieving a predefined milestone is often not sufficient anymore. Feedback loops of traditional monitoring, with quarterly and annual monitoring, midterm reviews, final evaluations, annual reporting, etc., have often proven to be too slow to influence decision-making on time. More timely real-time updates are required for better use of monitoring information and evaluation findings. In countries with an increasingly energetic civil society, there is growing public demand for greater transparency and public accountability in real time. Public policies, programs, and service delivery operate in increasingly complex and ever-changing social, economic, ecological, and political contexts. No single monitoring methodology can adequately describe and analyze the interactions among all of these different factors. Mixed methods allow for triangulation or comparative analysis, which is better suited to capture complex realities and to provide different perspectives on the effect of public policies, programs, or service delivery.
Some of these innovations, notably SMS-based data collection, are supporting the acceleration of evidence generation to assess progress on results and to quickly address bottlenecks and barriers in program implementation. You should always ensure that the monitoring method you have chosen is the most valid and appropriate for the specific situation.
Lesson 5. Important considerations for effective monitoring.
These are major considerations in monitoring. Click on the buttons to learn more. Type of results, output, outcome, impact, determines the data sources. Data sources should be selected in such a way that data could be made available for each of these levels at the appropriate frequency and cost. The selection of indicators must take into consideration feasibility, frequency, cost, and any other issues that may impede collection of data required to estimate the indicator. Methods and approaches should be relevant to what is monitored. Some methods may be more applicable in collecting data from households, while others may be suitable for facilities. There are methods that may be more suitable for qualitative data, while others are suitable for quantitative data. Monitoring in different contexts will be different. In humanitarian contexts, for example, the use of third-party monitors is more likely than in development contexts. Besides of what we've looked at so far, do you have anything else in mind that can help to ensure quality in monitoring activities and systems? Take a moment to think about this. Good practices for ensuring quality in monitoring activities and systems include engaging stakeholders in the design of monitoring systems, selecting and recruiting people with the required skills, for example, quantitative or qualitative data collection and analysis skills, gender analysis, ensuring quality of data collection tools, quality assurance on data analysis, planning and implementing dissemination and engagement with decision makers.
Lesson 6. Making use of monitoring information. It is important to understand who will use the monitoring data and for what purpose. There is no point in gathering monitoring data if it is not used to improve our ability to achieve results.
You should always keep in mind, all data should be useful for decision-making, not just collected. Let's look at this in more detail. Let's look at how monitoring information is used in practice. When we provide monitoring data, people use it for a variety of purposes, both internal and external. It provides feedback for managers, but it also plays an important role in ensuring that the other stakeholders understand whether the objectives of the initiative are being achieved. Click the button for the use of monitoring data.
Program mid-year annual reviews. Make adjustments to program strategies, design and inputs after periodic or ad hoc reviews. Provide data for continuous review of barriers and bottlenecks, which can lead to making program adjustments as appropriate. Provide baseline information during program planning. Identify best practices. Help make resource allocation decisions. Open and sustain communication between an organization and the public. Transparency and accountability. The whole point about monitoring data is that it should be used to make appropriate program adjustments. Click on each label for more information. Questions that could be asked are: what needs to be scaled up or down? What should be stopped? What new activities should be introduced? Certain aspects of the program may need to change based upon monitoring data. We may need to drop some implementers, change strategies, and/or make other adjustments. Monitoring may reveal capacity gaps that will need to be addressed for results to be achieved. Monitoring can lead to decisions about bringing in more and better skilled human resources, mobilizing additional funding to support activities, improving governance and management mechanisms, establishing stronger complementarity with program partners. Monitoring data can be used to reallocate financial resources, make sure that equipment is allocated correctly, ensure that supplies are distributed correctly. Monitoring information could be used by various groups, including government, implementing partners, communities, beneficiaries, coordinating structures at a variety of levels, and UNICEF and other UN agencies and donors. Please note that there is no order attributed to this diagram. Any element can use the data in any order. Click on each of the user groups to learn how they might use data in the Tasmania Education Programme. Data used to target particular schools and PTAs with additional support. Uses data to report on progress towards the achievement of outputs, whether strategies are appropriate, and any unintended consequences from implementation. Donors are interested in how contributions have been spent, how many have benefited from program interventions, and other results. Use data to check progress in reducing barriers. Monitoring information allows assessment of progress against plans and enables adjustment of strategies where relevant. The monitoring data can help improve attendance and children's performance. It may also help them have feedback on the impact of the new teaching materials and practices. The schools and PTAs will receive feedback SMSs with comparative information on how their schools rank in relation to district and national averages on teacher attendance, availability of education material, and the frequency of measurement of learning outcomes. Monitoring information will enable program managers to ensure that resources transferred to implementing partners are being used for the intended purpose. The data collected will help track quality standards in schools, which is in accordance with the requirements of the Education Sector Plan. Please note that each program will have its own specific needs in terms of monitoring. Officers should develop monitoring plans that identify the type of monitoring needed, how frequently it is done, by whom, and who the users are. OK, so let's finish this module with a short summary of what we have covered. Monitoring supports RBM by providing answers to 3 major questions. Are we implementing the intervention as planned? Are we achieving planned results? Are there any adjustments we need to make to the program? At this point, you should be able to describe the importance of results monitoring. Identify key elements of a performance monitoring plan. Identify key considerations in choosing different monitoring methods. Now it is time to test your knowledge. You need